Here's what the demographers won't tell you outright, though the data screams it. We are not merely choosing to have fewer children, we are actively replacing them. The American fertility rate sits at approximately 1.62 births per woman, well below the 2.1 needed for population replacement. You've probably heard this statistic. It gets trotted out every few months in some hand-wringing think piece about Social Security or nursing home staffing shortages. What you hear less about is the parallel trend. 66% of American households now own a pet. In 1988, that number was 56%. Among millennials specifically, pet ownership rates exceed 70%. But here's where the numbers get philosophically interesting. Americans now spend over $136 billion annually on their pets, a figure that has more than tripled since 2000. Pet insurance is a $3 billion industry. Dog daycare facilities outnumber child daycare facilities in several major metropolitan areas. There are now more dogs in San Francisco than children under 18. Let me repeat that because I want you to feel the full weight of it. In one of America's wealthiest cities, canines outnumber human children. Economists would call this a case of substitute goods, when one product replaces another that serves a similar function. Coffee instead of tea, Uber instead of taxis, dogs instead of offspring. But that framing, while technically accurate, misses something essential. When you choose Uber over a cab, you're still getting from point A to point B. The substitution is functionally equivalent. When you choose a French bulldog over a human child, you are choosing what exactly? The cargo cult of caregiving. In the 1940s, anthropologists observed a peculiar phenomenon in Melanesia. Indigenous tribes who had witnessed American military operations during World War II began constructing elaborate fake airstrips and control towers out of bamboo. They marched in formation with wooden rifles. They built replica headphones from coconuts. They were performing the rituals of cargo delivery, hoping the planes full of goods would return. They had the form, they lacked the substance. I think about cargo cults every time I see a dog mom license plate frame, or hear someone refer to their pet as their fur baby, or watch a couple push a stroller containing a Pomeranian through a farmer's market. What we are witnessing is the cargo cult of caregiving. The rituals are preserved, the birthday parties, the daycare, the careful selection of organic food. All the external signifiers of parenthood are maintained with obsessive fidelity. But the core function, the continuation of human lineage, the transmission of culture across generations, the creation of people who will exist after you die, is absent. Now, I can already hear the objections forming in your mind. You're being judgmental. People can make their own choices. Not everyone wants or can have children. How is this any of your business? All valid points. And yet, I can't shake the feeling that something has gone deeply, systemically wrong. Not with individuals. Individual choices are individual choices. But with the cultural operating system that produces these choices at such industrial scale.
Let's talk money, because Americans always eventually talk money. The standard explanation for declining fertility is economic. Children are expensive. The USDA estimates the cost of raising a child to age 18 at roughly $310,000, and that's before college. Meanwhile, real wages for young Americans have stagnated for decades. Housing costs have exploded. Student debt hangs like a millstone around the necks of an entire generation. The math doesn't work, we're told, and so, regrettably, people are choosing not to have children. This narrative is elegant, it's politically convenient, it allows us to blame impersonal economic forces rather than cultural rot. It's also, I believe, largely BS. Consider, the average lifetime cost of dog ownership is approximately $40,000. Some of the millennial couples who say they can't afford children are spending $2,000 annually on premium dog food, $2,000 on veterinary care, $500 on grooming, and $200 monthly on dog walking services because both partners work and feel guilty leaving Biscuit alone. Over a dog lifespan, this adds up to $40,000 or more, and many of these couples are on their second or third dog. The issue is not that children are unaffordable. The issue is that children require a type of sacrifice that dogs do not, and we have built a culture that has made sacrifice itself seem like a loser's bet. Dogs are wonderful precisely because they demand so little. They don't need to learn Mandarin to compete in the global economy. They don't require you to save for their college education. They will never resent you for your parenting failures, never throw your shortcomings in your face during a holiday dinner, never need therapy to process the damage you've inflicted on them through simple human imperfection. Dogs provide what economists might call low-risk emotional return on investment. You get love, companionship, Instagram content, and the warm glow of caretaking without the terrifying vulnerability of creating a human being who will one day judge you.
Milan Kundera wrote about the unbearable lightness of being, the vertigo we feel when life has no weight, no necessity, no meaning beyond itself. I think about this concept often when I contemplate the dog as child phenomenon. What does it mean to live a life with no stakes? Our ancestors, even our grandparents, lived within a web of obligation that extended backward and forward in time. They were links in a chain. They received life from those who came before. They were obligated to pass it on to those who would come after. This wasn't a romantic ideology. It was an operating procedure. You had children because that's what people did, because the farm needed hands, because someone had to care for you in old age, because the family line had to continue. Now imagine that the web dissolved. No farm, no hands needed. Social Security and nursing homes will handle old age, theoretically. The family line? What is that exactly? A relic from a time when blood meant something? Without obligation, we are left with pure choice alone. And pure choice, that most American of values, turns out to be a kind of prison. When you can choose anything, how do you choose anything? When no choice is necessary, what makes any choice meaningful? The dog provides a simulacrum of necessity. Someone depends on me. I must come home at a reasonable hour. I have responsibilities. I am needed. But, and here's the cargo cult problem again, it's manufactured necessity. It's a necessity theater. The moment the dog becomes inconvenient, truly inconvenient, the way children inevitably become, it can be rehomed, surrendered to a shelter, euthanized. Americans euthanized approximately 920,000 dogs annually. You can't do that with a toddler, can you? The dog provides the feeling of weight without the reality of weight, the form of meaning without its substance. There's a scene in Mike Judge's 2006 film Idiocracy that has haunted me for almost 2 decades. The movie opens with a split-screen comparison. On one side, a sophisticated couple endlessly postponing children while they focus on careers and finding themselves. On the other side, a dim-witted family breeds prolifically, their offspring multiplying like rabbits. The film then jumps 500 years into the future, where humanity has devolved into mouth-breathing morons, their intelligence bred out of them over generations. It's played for laughs, of course, dark, eugenic-adjacent laughs, but laughs nonetheless. Except here's the thing. The movie's premise isn't actually about intelligence. It's about commitment. The smart couple keeps postponing, keeps waiting for the perfect moment, keeps calculating cost-benefit ratios until it's too late. The dumb family just does it. They act. They commit. They accept the burden and the joy without running it through a spreadsheet first. Idiocracy is not about who has babies. It's about what happens when a culture's most thoughtful, conscientious, Prudent members opt out of the fundamental project of civilizational continuity. The Romans had a word for this, luxuria. Not luxury in our modern sense, but something more like excessive softness. A civilization so comfortable, so insulated from necessity, that it loses the capacity for the hard things. The Romans watched it happen to themselves. They wrote about it. They couldn't stop it.
I want to be clear. I like dogs. I've had dogs. Dogs are great. This essay is not anti-dog. But let me list some things a dog will never do. A dog will never challenge your worldview. It will never develop political opinions that differ from yours, forcing you to confront the limits of your own ideology. It will never announce at Thanksgiving that it's become a Republican or a socialist or a Buddhist or a flat earther. A dog will never surpass you. It will never go on to accomplish things you never could, making your life meaningful as a link in a chain of human achievement. No one will ever say, her dog went on to cure cancer. A dog will never care for you when you're old. It will not hold your hand in the hospital. It will not make decisions about your care. It will not tell your grandchildren who you were. A dog will not carry your stories after you're dead. It will not pass on the lessons you spent a lifetime learning. When you die, everything you are dies with you. A dog will never, can never, continue your existence beyond your existence. Certain evolutionary biologists argue that the only point of an organism is to serve as a vessel for gene transmission. We are, in their cold formulation, merely DNA's way of making more DNA. I find this view reductive, but I also can't entirely dismiss it. There is something deep in us, something that predates culture, predates language, predates conscious choice that wants to persist, that wants some piece of ourselves to exist after we're gone. The dog satisfies none of this. It feels like it does. That's the trick. That's the cargo cult. But when the fundamental accounting is done, the ledger is empty. Let me paint you a picture of 2050. The millennial generation will be entering its late 60s and 70s. The boomers will be largely gone. Gen X will be in its 80s. And there will be, quite simply, not enough young people. Who will staff the nursing homes? Who will pay into Social Security? Who will develop new medicines, build new infrastructure, maintain the systems that keep a complex society functioning? The answer, increasingly, is nobody, or not enough somebodies. Japan is already there, with adult diapers outselling baby diapers, with villages populated entirely by the elderly, with a government so desperate it's experimenting with robot caregivers. South Korea's fertility rate has dropped below 0.8, the lowest ever recorded in human history. At that rate, a population halves every generation. Within a century, Korea as a cultural and genetic entity will essentially cease to exist. And America follows, more slowly but inexorably, on the same path. Now, maybe technology will save us. Maybe robots and AI will do the work that humans won't. Maybe we'll import enough immigrants to fill the gap, though every developed nation is experiencing the same decline, so this becomes a global game of musical chairs. Maybe we'll just figure it out. Maybe, or maybe, the generation that traded children for golden doodles will age into a society with no one to care for them, surrounded by creatures who love them unconditionally, but who cannot call 911, cannot advocate for their medical care, cannot provide the specifically human comfort of intergenerational continuity. They will die alone in their overpriced apartments, their dogs eventually surrendered to shelters, their stuff distributed by the state to distant relatives or nobody at all. But hey, they didn't have to deal with teenage rebellion or paying for college, so there's that. I want to ask something that will make some of you very angry. Is the choice to not have children, the choice made by tens of millions of educated, prosperous Americans, actually a choice? Or is it a symptom? What if the dog baby phenomenon is not a free, autonomous decision, but rather an expression of something broken in the cultural code? What if we are not choosing this, but being chosen by it? By an economic system that makes children seem irrational? By a therapeutic culture that frames sacrifice as pathology? By a social media environment that rewards the consumable cuteness of pets over the difficult, unglamorous labor of human formation? What if the very framing of parenthood as a choice, a lifestyle option comparable to where you spend your vacation or what diet you follow, is itself the problem? Previous generations understood something we have forgotten. Some things are obligatory precisely because they are unchosen. You do not choose to care for your aging parents. You do not choose to raise the next generation. These are not preferences, they are duties. And a society that converts all duties into preferences will eventually find itself with no one willing to perform them. The dogs were never the problem. The dogs were always a symptom.